welcome to another webinar in the land of journey management. While everyone is dropping in, you will see today we're going to talk about organizing your journeys for effective decision making. I'll wait everyone to drop in, but it's going to be an hour of power, a whole lot of fun, and it's good to be back. This is the first webinar we do in 2024, so I'm very excited, and I'll introduce our guest today in a sec. While we have everyone dropping in, getting geared up in Zoom. It's easy for some, hard for others, the perils of Zoom. So let's get the ball rolling in a few, and then we're ready. Welcome everyone. Last people dropping in right on the time mark, so we'll be starting. I think this is a good time to do it. It is recorded, so you will get the recording. Your colleagues will get a recording. Your teammates will get it. So, Marzia, if you are ready, then we can get started. By the way, what I love is that people are already saying hello, hello in the chat. Usually I have to announce, like, put your name in the chat, say, hey, where you're from, but people are already doing it. So welcome, everyone. Very nice to see you. Vilma from Finland, Amit from Toronto, Bianca from Hamburg. Hello, hello, everyone. Way too many to to say hello. Welcome, Marzia. Let me introduce you first, because today we're going to talk about decision-making, organizing your journeys for it. And you have a whole lot of experience in that. You have a PhD in service design for organizational change. You're a consultant, you're a coach, you're a speaker, you're working on a graphic novel on design and change. We're going to dig into that. You're the editor of Design Mavericks on Substack, and you have been foundational in many organizations setting up a journey-centric way of working, from like big sports brands, everyone knows, to some of the largest banks in the world. But before we dig in, I want to say welcome. Thank you for joining us. Everyone who is listening today, there's a lot of people joining us live. So if you have questions, please use the Q&A so we can like mitigate a little bit and organize them. We'll have plenty of time at the end to go through them. You can also use the chat, but sometimes they get like deprioritized. So Q&A button is the easiest one if you find it. If you can, please drop them there. I'll see if we can take a few questions as we go, but technically, I think with so many people joining, it will be easier to do them at the end. Okay, so enough housekeeping. Marzia, thank you for joining again. Maybe we can start with like where you have been being foundational in all these organizations, setting up a journey-centric practice, and where you're going for people who have tuned in. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you first for having me here. It's a pleasure and nice to see so many people joining from all over the world. Okay, so I've spent about 10 years of my career at LiveWork Studio. LiveWork is a pioneering, leading service design agency with offices in London, Rotterdam, and São Paulo in Brazil. And I was design director there, as well as towards the end of my experience there, managing director. And in that period of time, I really spent quite a lot of time thinking about how to establish service design in organizations in a sustainable way. So I've done it to practice, but I've also done it through a PhD that I decided to do at a business school, not at a design school, because I was very interested in understanding that side of the story, right? So how can you really fundamentally ensure to understand the organizational structure in a way that you can embed new practices, new ways of working, new routines? I knew the design part. I really needed to understand the organizational side. And so basically that piece of work, together with our collective experience at LiveWork, became a framework for customer-centricity transformation, so to really help organizations transform around the needs of their customer. And a big part of that work is really journey management, right? So I've been diving into this topic for many years now. And I've done it thanks to organizations that actually trusted me to play in the ground and really, research, but also structure the way they, think about and provide services. So as you said, I worked across many sectors: retail, financial sector, insurance and banks, sport brands, biotech, pharmaceutical, so really, really diverse. Fundamentally, I believe that, you know, you don't necessarily need to be an expert in any of these sectors in order to do this kind of work. I mean, obviously it helps if you work for 5 or 6 years in a bank, you learn a thing or two about, you know, banking and the kind of, you know, services and products they sell. But fundamentally, I think, you know, the challenge with this type of work is really an organizational one, and it's very similar across all these different sectors. I mean, the challenge is really not knowing what kind of services you are delivering for customers, really being organized around products, complete lack of definitions of what a service or a product is, siloed mentality, right? So not sharing, not collaborating, each unit really reinventing the wheel. So these are really challenges that are agnostic from the sector within which you operate. And then after this fantastic experience at LiveWork, I decided to, well, set up as a solopreneur. So I was a bit tired of the agency world. I decided to really go solo for a while. You know, when you become managing director at that level, you basically end up not doing any design work and really doing a lot of spreadsheet kind of work, which is fun. You know, I mean, I've done it and I love it, but I was a bit tired of it and I really wanted to, you know, explore new things. And one of these things is the book. Another thing is the online video series that I'm doing on Women Design Leader. And, you know, I'm doing some consulting one-to-one, and I'm trying to really be intentional with the kind of clients that I work with. You know, to do this kind of work, you really need to find clients that are, you know, already at a certain maturity, or at least really committed to really do the groundwork. And so I'm being very, you know, intentional in the way I choose the clients to work with. And I'm doing a lot of coaching as well, like on the job coaching, one-to-ones. So really trying to, you know, help individuals, support individuals in this journey, which is really difficult and multi-stakeholder and quite challenging for many.
I love that. So let's unravel a few of those things. Still, we're going to come back to the novel, but like, you are obviously getting a little bit of fame for your A.V.O.C framework on how to organize your journeys, but maybe we should unpack journeys first, because customer centricity has been a problem or a solution kind of space for decades, right? It's nothing new, and people and businesses struggle with this because of the way they are organized. Everyone today joining, and you and I agree, right? Journeys are important. They're really important for decision-making. They're really important for alignment. You're preaching to the choir here. And yet there's so much to unpack here. Why do you think right now, in this point in time, it's 2024, like, why now the emphasis on journeys? Like, what shifted? And I also know there's a lot of lingo to unpack, like consumer lifecycle, customer lifecycle, journey framework. Like, we'll go into the weeds, but like, before doing that, why now this emphasis on journeys?
I think what shifted is the speed of change. You know, we have organizations that are really set in a century ago. You know, the way we organize organizations really as a model really comes from theories that are 100, 150 years old, right? And it comes very much from a tradition that is a manufacturing one. And what that tradition basically says is that you need to, you know, take you know, the entire process of manufacturing and really split it into pieces, and then different people will own a different kind of area, different part of that production, right? And then you basically have some stuff that you input, like resources, and then the machine and the people work these resources, and then you have an output, which is a product. You ship the product, and off you go. That's it. Your job is done. Now, the reality is that since then, the world has flipped a million times. And the thing is that, so it's no longer a question of producing a product in isolation. That is so, we all know that everything is so much connected, but also the world keeps changing in terms of economical, geopolitical shifts, in terms of technological shifts. And so as an organization, you must be able not only to cope with these changes, but to anticipate these changes in a way that you can thrive in it rather than succumb underneath, you know? And so journeys is a way to understand your organization in a holistic way. In a sense, as you mentioned, one of the things that try to highlight in the article that I wrote about my framework is really that the journey will happen whether you design it or not, right? So people will go through an experience with your products and your services, whether it's intentional or just, you know, the result of a process, right? And so when the world changes and the expectations of customers changes, you need to follow that path in order to be able to understand how to do better within the current paradigm, but how to do better in terms of, you know, your market, you know, how to maintain your market share in a world where, you know, organizations that used to be manufacturing companies now provide insurance services versus healthcare services, right? So even the kind of the boundaries between sectors are really blurring. And so how do you cope with all of that? If you keep looking inside out from your organization to the world outside, it's really hard to find an answer because you will always have a filter that is determined, right? But if you start looking at your organization from the outside in, what are actually people experiencing? And not just in relation to me and my products and services, but in relation to my sector, then you start really opening opportunity spaces in a way that is unprecedented. So I think that is the reason why, you know, organizations are more and more realizing and focusing on journeys.
Right. So tell me, like, if you look at the whole umfeld of your sector, what we are seeing, and you're seeing as well, is like the first signs of doing this work is starting with a customer lifecycle or a consumer lifecycle. And we think about like, hey, how are we measuring each of those stages? But then you come in and say like, there's a big difference between that, if I understand right, by reading and understanding what you're saying. Like, let's unpack that first. What is the difference between a customer lifecycle and a consumer lifecycle? Is that the same thing? Is it different? Like,
not the same thing.
Help us understand.
Okay, so I want to take as an example manufacturing, retail, because I think it's something that everyone is experiencing, buying a product like a bag or a pair of shoes, okay? Now, if I'm a consumer of a product, let's say even automotive, let's say of cars, I'm a consumer of cars, at this very point in time, for example, I'm using a car that is called Link & Co, which I don't own, is a subscription model. So I pay every month to be able to use the car. I'm also renting once in a while on Greenwheel, which is the local, you know, car sharing platform, right? Because I might need, you know, a larger car, like a van for whatever reason, right? So I'm a consumer of cars in the sense that I use cars constantly. Either they're mine, I could use my father's car, I can rent, I can subscribe, I can own a car, right? At different points of my life, I will do several or one specifically of these things, right? So I have a driving license and I've been owning car. I will probably own cars. And so if you look at my trajectory of what it means consuming cars, you will see all of these things, right? You will see that there is a moment in which actually my need for a car starts rising. For example, when I moved to the Netherlands, for 4 or 5 years, I didn't have a car at all. I didn't need it. Then I had a child. And when I had a child, then I realized actually a car is pretty useful, right? So it was a moment in my life that actually triggered a need for a car. And then I'm in this, you know, consumer world where I start thinking, okay, what brand, what kind of car, is it a subscription? Should I own, should not, right? And so I evaluate all of my options until I choose one thing. And in this case, it's a subscription, right? And so in that case, I become a customer of Link & Co. Right? So I'm a customer of the specific brand. So I go down one level in which I start experiencing your brand and all of the interactions that you have designed for me, right? But at the same time, I keep being in the consumer level because I also use my father's cars and I also use the rental van, right? So I'm keeping open to possibilities. And right now, I'm also thinking, well, actually, the subscription model might not necessarily work for me because, you know, I might want to be free to do more than 1,000 kilometers a month, whatever, right? And so now I'm evaluating. Now I'm back to the evaluation consumer point, thinking, okay, is that solution actually the right one for me? And I'm looking at ownership of cars. So I'm going back to the consumer level, looking at all of these possibilities while still being a customer of a specific brand, right? And so the level of granularity at which I'm looking at people is quite different. If I look at Marzia as a customer of Link & Co, this specific subscription brand, then it will look like choosing the right offer between our portfolio of services, right? You will look at, subscribing to the thing online. You will look at, receiving the car, first use, the regular use. Well, if you are a consumer level, you're way more into, evaluating my needs, looking at all the different options, looking at what different brands, start providing me. I will go in comparison sites, for example, which I might not necessarily look at the customer level because I have no influence on that, right? As a Lincoln Core company, I have no influence on me asking questions on forums or on comparison sites, right? What they have control on is their own website, their own touch points, their app, right? And so what I usually say is that they're both valid. It's not that one is better than the other, It's just a different granularity, a different level at which I look at people and the way they behave, right? And so what I usually say is that if you're looking at improving your current services and products, the customer's life cycle is where to be, right? You want to be very granular, look at, how do people interact with me? In what way they experience my services and products? What are the key journeys into this, level? What are the touch points that are performing better than others, right? But if you're looking at innovation, if you are in an industry that is under pressure, and a lot of organizations right now are from tech to manufacturing for different reasons, and you want to really explore what else could be, what else could I offer? In what way do I have completely to rethink my offering? For example, a good example there is insurance, general insurance that need to insure your house against, environmental catastrophes are in a big pressure, under big pressure right now. If you're in Australia, for example, and you want to insure your house against bushfires, it's really hard these days because there is bushfires basically every year, right? So good luck to find an organization that can actually insure you for that. So you actually need to start as an organization questioning, what are we here to do in a world where, it's unpredictable, where, environmental catastrophes are on a yearly basis. And then if you have to start, looking at your offerings and your purpose as an organization at large, and you want to go high, right? You want to go at, how do people experience this? In what way do they think about safety outside of the small realm within which I operate, right? And so this back and forth, up and down, is fundamental between the innovation space, if you like, to kind of simplify, and the more, improvement, making sure that whatever I deliver right now actually works. And, for a lot of organizations, the customer life cycle is more than enough because their services are so broken that it's like, please start there, please make sure that whatever you are delivering right now actually works first before going imagining new worlds,
Have you seen many organizations figure this part out? Because the distinction is like, it's very subtle, right? It's just a few characters in the words. And yet you're talking about totally two different lenses. I think it's new information for a lot of people listening today. So how do you go about it? Like assessing a company is like, are they mature enough as an organization to even distinguish the two? At what level is the right way to start? Like, should we have it all? Should we just start with the customer lifecycle? Should we build out the consumer lifecycle as well? Like, where's the starting point for this?
The starting point is why do you want to do journey management? Like what's pressing you to do that? Is that because everyone has journeys? Like what is the reason why you want to invest into this? And from that answer, you will immediately see what's the take, So right now I'm working with a very traditional manufacturing company. And when I've asked them this question, they responded, our market is shrinking. We have no longer the market that we used to have 10 years ago. We're really struggling. We're going through rounds of layoffs. So in that case, my answer is, there is no point that you look at the customer life cycle because your market doesn't exist anymore. It's changing and you don't understand it. So you have to go higher. You have to go higher and look into your sector at large and across sector in the overlaps. In what way people are experiencing similar types of challenges and experiences, If the question is, we want to reduce cost, we want to become more efficient, which is a valid answer, and I get that very often, then fine, let's look at the customer life cycle for sure. Let's not even look at other things at this point. Let's just make sure that whatever machine you're working with right now is well-oiled and tight, and we make sure to avoid duplication of efforts. One of the banks where I worked for many years, when we started doing this work, we found, and we started overlaying their products against the services that they delivered. We found 27 ways that they developed to convert euros to dollars. Like, do you need 27 products to do that? No, and they didn't even know that these products existed, you know? It's just that different units in an organization that is like 250,000 people, different people in different geographies thought, oh, we need this thing and we don't have it. So we build it. You know, so that's the first thing that you want to do. Okay, let's create a map of the land. What is that we already have, and how do these things connect to each other? And once you realize we have 27, okay, let's scratch 26 and keep one. Let's have a team that can actually manage that. Let's make sure that people know that this thing exists, and we will move on. You know what I mean? So I think it's really linked to what is the reason that you have as an organization to do this, to map your journeys.
Typically, we see two things, right? There's like the top-down push is one. Okay, the market is shrinking. We need to like course correct the whole business. Who's going to work on this and who has solutions? And then it gets bubbled down in the organization. And at some point, teams will start to run around in circles. The other way is that journey management truly starts bottom up.
Yeah.
Like a particular part of the service or a particular part of the product is not working or needs to be looked at in the context of the whole experience. How do you help organizations navigate that? Like, any experience? I think this is a question from Pamela. Yes, I'm saying that right. Any experience with a top-down, bottom-up approach to coordinate and implement this in an organization where service design wants to take the journeys to the next level, whatever that means? We typically see that because service designers think holistically, they know what to do, but like, can you, how do you take that?
You need absolutely both. You need both on one side because you need the sponsorship, and fundamentally you need the money and the resources to do this, right? This is actually costly. It's not a thing that you do in a couple of days and there you go, you're done. But you also need the bottom up, you know, source and momentum, because, you know, you need people to actually go there and practice it and actually, you know, map it and you know, make sure that this thing happens. And you want these people to buy into the story, right? Because I've seen in many organizations when, you know, this demand happens top down, then people respond, yeah, but we don't have enough resources, but yeah, you know, you don't understand that this works, but yeah, I mean, who's going to be responsible for this? Like you know, a lot of buts and never really, you know, if you don't have a team that actually bought into this story, then it's really hard to make it work regardless. So I think you need both. And you know, one thing that I usually do with my clients, when you start bottom up, so when you have like a group of service designers, of CX practitioners who really realize the value of this and want to really scale this up in the organization, the first thing to do is to find 2 or 3 sponsors. Never only one. And the reason is because in organizations, leadership changes. People are fired. People change jobs, you know. The momentum and the interest, the energy of the organization changes. So never put all of your eggs in a bucket, because that person might change their mind for whatever reason or might not be there in a year. So you want to make sure to have a few sponsors with actual budgets, with actual skin in the game, that are supporting your work. And the way to convince these people is not to say, oh, design, or journeys. No, they don't care about that. You go and try and understand what are these people deeply caring about. And I'll give you an example. One of the sponsors that we had for the bank work was the CTO. Now, we did what I call a bit of organizational ethnography. We basically went around his team to try to understand what words are they using, what is pressing right now within this team, what are they talking about. And basically turned out that the CTO was asked from the CEO, CTO is Chief Technology Officer, asked from the CEO, which is the Chief Executive Officer, to provide a return of investment on the X amount of billions that they were spending on tech every year. And this dude, because he's always a dude, didn't have that, right? He didn't have that. He didn't quite know how to provide that ROI. And he was going around shopping in the organization to the AI team, data analytics, asking, hey, you guys, here is $1 million or $2 million. Can you just take a few months to figure out how to calculate my ROI, my return on investment on this, you know, tech expenditure? And so we said, okay, so there is energy. That's where the energy is. That's what this guy is interested in. And so we went and say, hey, listen, if we had a bit of money and time, we could put together a map of all the services that this organization offers. And it was like completely not listening at that point. And we could map over that all of the products that you build. And next to that, we could map which teams are working on what, calculate roughly how much it costs to run these things, and how much money do they generate through the services in terms of revenue. And that would be your basis for your calculation of return on investment. It won't be exact at the beginning, but will be, you know, a great starting point. And at that point, listen, he said, okay, there are 2 million. Here is, you have 6 months, just let me know, right? Was he interested in design, our work? Did he understand anything about what we were trying to do? Absolutely not. He couldn't care less. And he was trying us plus 3 or 4 other solutions, you know? But that was our starting point. We had the money. We could play with it, you know? And he had no interest how we were going to do that. And then at the same time, we went to operations and we did exactly the same thing. And the thing that turned out, obviously, what is it? Headcount, right? Headcount, and it's automation. We want to automate, we want to reduce the headcount. So how to do it in a way that it makes sense? We said, hey, with the CTO, now at that point, you can use the card, but the CTO is, you know, endorsing us. We are building this map. We're building the map of all of the services and products. This can allow you to really understand in what way you can automate and what, while, you know, maintaining the customer experience high. Great, here's this another bucket of money, and you have your second sponsor. And you keep doing that constantly. You never stop doing that, right? So throughout the work,
like, I want to buy from you right now, right? You should be doing a whole course on like selling service design and thinking about journey. But,
like, you know,
but this is the
no
point. The business problem is more important than whatever the journey is solving, right? And the business leaders, they have the problems to solve, right? And I think that is what you're saying. Connect the dots from what a service designer can do. And the best service designers that I've seen, they're not necessarily thinking about like what level we're designing on. It's like, no, we have the customer and we have the business, both need to get value. How do I optimize for that? And I think that is the essential bit that we can get lost and sidetracked on, like, oh, we're so passionate about journeys, but that's not the point. It's like solving real tangible problems. I really love that. This is a nice segue into maybe the A.V.O.C framework that you've developed and actually are like implementing in these large organizations to bring this kind of alignment in. Again, like A.V.O.C doesn't say journey, but you're using a customer journey lens to bring all of that together. So I want to do 2 things. I want you to explain what the A.V.O.C framework is, how it came to be, what are the elements, how did they work? And I also know that you are setting up this way of working literally, and you want to show that today. So I want to do 2 things, like set it up that way, go into the weeds. I know this audience also loves some technical depth of the story. So if it's up to me, like, let's start with the A.V.O.C framework.
Yeah, I can give like an overview of what the framework is about, and then we can immediately dive into the platform. Okay, so A.V.O.C stands for Anchor, Variations, Outcomes, and Change. Okay, let's start from anchor. What is an anchor? It's a very heavy thing that keeps you aligned. And that heavy thing then rarely changes is your life cycle. That's why I'm so keen on it. The life cycle is either the consumer life cycle or the customer life cycle, depending on what the thing that you need. It's usually sector specific, so it's not specific to your organization. So every time I get in an organization, I always try saying, why don't we do a meeting with a couple of your competitors to try and understand in what way they see the life cycle, right? Because there is nothing proprietary. It's a life cycle. It's like people go through these phases regardless whether you exist or not. The answer is usually no. So it never happened that I had someone say, yeah, let's do it.
But you still do it? You still do it?
I keep asking every time, yes. I mean, there will be a point in which someone will say yes. Yes, so the anchor is basically your piece, your life cycle. And then underneath that, as part of the anchor is also all of the services that as an organization you provide, because those rarely change. Now, it is very important to explain what is a service. Like the difference between service, product, and journey for me is fundamental. And I don't care to be honest, what is the definition that you give? As long as in your organization, everyone agrees, right? So that if you say service, everyone understands the same thing. In my world, my definition of service is something that someone else, like a customer, needs to do in a way that is an outcome for my organization. Meaning, as a person, I need a car. As a company, I provide cars. Therefore, your need is matched by whatever it is that I do as an organization. Within an organization, you will find a list. So this is the first thing that I ask people to do. Can you provide a list of all of the services that you offer, right? And, you know, for some organizations, the list is hundreds. For some others, it's actually 3 or 4. And these are the main kind of services. It has to be a need of a person. And then on the other side, you also have supporting services. And the supporting services are basically those things that need to be there in order for the service to actually happen, like getting help or, you know, paying for something, right? It's not something that as a person I want to necessarily do, pay for something, but I have to do it in order to get my car, right?
So just to clarify, like what a lot of people think about services is more like productized ways of delivering intangible goods.
Right. In that
but
case,
it's like you make a distinction between like there's two.
And in that case, I would really suggest people to read 2 books. Service Organization by Kate Tarling, outstanding book. And then the second is Good Services by Lou Down. Now, these 2 services, you read these 2 and you will become it's a master degree on service thinking and service design.
Cool. I'll put them in the show notes for everyone.
Then there are the V, variations. So variations are things that always change all the time. And so the first thing is your products. And products, my definition of products is something tangible that allows service provision. So a service can happen only if there is a thing, because a service is intangible, right? And it can only happen if there is a tangible thing in between that I can interact with that can allow me to actually experience the service. And so in the case of the car example that I brought before, it's the actual car, but it's also the app through which I registered for this thing, but it's also the website, but it's also the point of sale through which I actually paid for this thing. So I interact with all of these different digital or physical products. And with some of these things, I will interact directly. Some others are products on the back end, like fulfillment systems and you know, digital platforms that allow me to actually see whether that I will have to wait 6 months in order to get my car, right? So I don't necessarily interact directly with the product, but I experience the result of it, right? And so those things change all the time, basically, and they're there to support the higher level service, which I experience as a customer. Within these variations, there are also journeys. And what are journeys? Journeys are the way I choose to go to experience a product or service. And I usually make the example of traveling, right? Like using an airline. So if I'm a business, I mean, I am a mom of 1 kid, but I'm also a person that works, a professional. I often travel for business. So if I travel for business to Stuttgart for 1 day, I have certain needs and I choose to interact with the airline in a way. If I travel with my kid, my mom, my husband for holiday, my behavior is completely different, right? Because I might check in at the kiosk instead of checking online. I might have luggages. In the other case, I might not, right? So the journey is basically the way, all of the different ways you can experience those products and services. And those change all the time. And so these are your variations. So journeys are a fundamental part of the framework, but they're not the framework. So unless you know where all these things anchor to, it's just impossible. So people that tell me, let's start from journeys, understand what are the key journeys. It's impossible to do that unless you understand the context. And what the anchor basically gives you is the context. And then you have a piece that the O is for outcomes. And I'm keen to call it outcomes and not metrics, because the tendency that I see in organizations is to grab as many metrics as possible. Whatever we can measure it, and then put it in a pile and never use it, So usually usually a lot of organizations measure NPS. I have an allergy for NPS. And so I usually ask, okay, why are you doing them? Like, what does the NPS actually tell you? And no one really gives you an answer that makes any sense. And the reason is because they don't know how to connect whatever you're measuring to the outcome that you want to achieve as an organization. So what is the change that you want to see in the world as a result of your actions, right? And so as an organization, you might say that our objective for our customers providing a frictionless experience, or for our operations is deliver on time, or for our businesses, growing revenue 2% every year, okay? So there might be, or 5% or 10%. For our operations could be reducing costs at 2% every year, right? So I want to understand, so the work that I do with clients usually is, let's nail down 2 or 3 outcomes that you're trying to achieve here as a group of people doing work, right? For clients, for business, for operations, for the environment. And then let's look for those metrics, because you already have them. You're already measuring them for sure. That can tell us whether their outcome is becoming true or not. And so again, you put metrics in context. And that helps you driving decision-making. That helps you to say, okay, we're measuring NPS to tell us about this thing we are not achieving, so we have to do work on it. The idea of just growing NPS per se, you know, is idiotic. What that produces is basically, you know, people, the frontline staff, people that work, you know, in delivering services and products, to beg you to give them a 10 stars, right? They tell you, you know, they're going to call you or they're going to send you a survey. Please give me 10 stars. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be a problem for me. Like,
NPS is so effed in many different ways.
You're driving
But
crazy.
what you're saying is that the anchor in a lot of organizations is NPS. That is a problem.
The anchor is the metric itself. NPS
Exactly.
is an example. But the anchor cannot be the metric itself.
Right.
The anchor has to be what you're trying to achieve.
Understood.
And
So
then the final bit is the change bit. So it's really the operating model and how you prioritize action. Now, should we get into the platform? I've been playing with it and I've been loving it.
sure. I think people love to see some visual power to your framework. I know your article has been shared in the chat already, and we'll put it in show notes as well for people if you want to read it outside of this. Like A.V.O.C, it has a nice ring to it. Obviously thinking about the food, but yeah, like maybe you should come up with another few characters to make it complete. But let's put it in practice. I mean, I'm curious to see how you're actually thinking about this. I know a little bit, but like, take us through it.
Right.
How you operationalize this.
My screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what you have at the top in purplish is a customer lifecycle. And I chose the customer lifecycle because it's the one that most organizations work with. So I wanted people to see themselves in this. And I've chosen as a sector retail manufacturing. So I go directly from buy in my customer lifecycle, because anything else that happens before, you're a consumer, you're not a customer of the specific organization. So I'm just looking at you from the moment in which you become a customer to the moment in which you leave. Anything else for me is higher, is on the consumer lifecycle. That can be anchored above. So you have steps like, you know, I decide to purchase, I purchase the product, I wait, I receive the product. And you have those illustrations as usual, right? Then below that, you have in blue services and supporting services. And then this is dummy content, obviously. I cannot share client contents that openly, but it's like, it's close enough to reality. I'm using 3 examples of services here. So as a person, as a customer, one thing that I need is to get a product that matches my need. That's a need that I have. And then from the organizational side, it's something that I can provide. So it is a service, right? Another important thing is that a service always starts with a verb. You get something, you stop something, you start something, you become something. In case of governmental services, for example, you become married, right? The second example of service is using the product to fit my routine. So I want this product to enter in my routine in a way that is seamless for me. And then the third, I might need to get rid of the product, right? So these are 3 examples of services that, you know, things that I might need that a company can help me with. And then there are below that, and so you see that they stretch. They stretch throughout a number of stages, right? So getting a product that matches my need actually happens throughout a few stages. That goes from decide to purchase to I use the product for the first time, right? It's a whole period, all sorts of different stages of the life cycle where that is relevant. But for example, I use the product for the first time is relevant for the first service, getting a product that matches my needs, but also using the product to fit my routine. So different services might overlap at different points in the life cycle. And then the swim lane below, you have supporting services. And so, as I said, supporting services are not necessarily a response to a need that I have as an individual, but it's just things you have to do in order for the service to come to life. And so one thing, for example, is pay. So a supporting service is paying for something, right? So as an organization, I make sure that you can pay for something. Now, another thing could be resolve an issue. As a person, I might need to resolve an issue, which is not something that I wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, like resolve an issue with this organization is my, thing in life, but it's something that I need to do in order to get to somewhere else. And so as an organization, I provide help, get help. Now, getting help, so that supporting service might happen in all sorts of different stages. It will happen while you wait. You see it in yellow, but it will also happen when you use the product for the first time. You might have questions, you don't know how to do it. You might happen when you use it regularly. It might happen when you change your mind. So that getting help method and approach process, you should design once, and then you repeat it throughout, right? Same thing.
So what you're saying is basically like
it's a pattern.
A.V.O.C framework is the anchor, like you are saying, like the customer life cycle. But then resolvement, if you look at it this way, happens in many of these stages. But if you would look at, if I am responsible for claim handling or issue resolvement, I'll just look at the resolve thing because that impacts me. And then I'll see like where in the customer life cycle it touches the customer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so if you look at your world through that silo perspective, you will design a process of getting help 3, 4, 5 different times because different teams look at that work without context, right? For example, register information is a great way of thinking about it. I might register my information at the beginning when I put all of my data to receive my stuff, but I might do it again when I want to engage with you and become part of the community, right? And this is completely different organizational functions. One could be marketing and sales, another could be operations or customer engagement, right? And so each of them.
And it would also avoid the, how many calculators of currency that the bank actually have? 27 or something?
Everyone designs the same thing multiple times. So you do it once and call it service patterns, right? These are patterns that you are recurring.
Okay.
You should, do once. Okay, that's it. This is your anchor. Then we get into the stuff, the variation, the stuff that change all the time. And so here I have product areas, I called it. So in this case, in green, you have everything that is related to customer experience. And that could be digital or physical. So you could have, for example, mobile experience. You might have multiple apps, so it's not just one app, right? A lot of organizations have that. But packaging is also a product that is physical, that really defines your experience as a customer. So it's all clustered on the customer experience. So things that really define your experience as a customer. But then I have another cluster in purple that is operations. That could be, for example, product supply and fulfillment. Now, that is the product that allows me as a customer to see whether the shoe or whatever it is ready today or in 3 days, right? And so that is a fundamental product in my organization of the business. It's not necessarily visible to the customer, but it's related to a bucket that is called operations. Logistics could be another thing, like the way I deliver stuff could be another thing. And then there are other things like enterprise reporting. That's also a product, but it's about managing business, really. So it belongs to a different kind of bucket. So these are all products that could very well be in an organization, product areas per se, aka silos per se, right? And within that, because they think enterprise reporting is a product, but it's also a function inside an organization and the work in a silo. In reality, that thing is affecting a lot of other products and a number of different services in a certain point of the life cycle. So knowing what products are relevant where and in what way they affect other products is a fundamental thing. Now, to date, it has never happened to me. And I worked in this field for 17 years. And I made a calculation the other day. I helped around 50 organizations to do similar type of work in small and large shape. Never happened to have one organization tells me, this is the list of my products. This is the list of my services. Even just that, just give me a list. It just doesn't exist. So in the moment in which you put these products within context, and you show in what way these products serve different services, people go like, ah, like you see the penny drop, there's a click moment, because no one ever looks at things in context.
So what about the journeys?
And now we get to journeys. So the journeys are here in the red bit. And so an example that I'm giving here is click and collect. Click and collect is a great example of journey because, it's within the service getting a product that fits your needs. So I want to get the service is getting a product that fits my need, but then I can go to the shop, choose my thing and pay there. Or I can order online and receive it at home. Or I can order it online and collecting at store. So this is pure kind of omni-channel kind of thing, right? And so this is one way that I choose to experience the service getting the product fits my needs. And so that's one journey. But another journey could be receive a used gift card, right? And so you open that and you have your regular journey. Like this is like regular journey work where you have your different stages, like I receive a gift card, I decide to use the gift card, I store the gift card somewhere, like this gift card or membership, so like loyalty is kind of an important thing for a lot of retail organizations. You see your experience, you see your insights, you see your touch points. So you would treat the journey as you always do, but you would see in context next to all of these other things that are happening, right? And you can start tagging and overlay the products that I showed before in the journey as well, to start looking what are the journeys that are most affecting this specific journey. And then
how on earth are people getting all of this in one place today? Like, I know what a lot of organizations have tried to do, like even getting that list is hard, but like then you start to map it out on endless whiteboards. It's crazy, right?
right.
Make it sound so easy. Like, how do organizations start with all of this to get it in one place?
The Miro or Excel, which, it's a great starting point when you're brainstorming, because to get to this level of clarity, when you're at the beginning, it's like super hard, right? So you want to play with things, move and match, you want to do collaboratively, you want people to comment, you want to test a few things with, customers, whatever. So you want to think that everyone can access, it's fine, it's all good. But in the moment in which you start having clarity on the shape of your framework, so what are the key stages? What are the services underneath, like high level? What are our first 2 or 3 journeys? Then you need something like this in order to be able to things connect, right? Because otherwise you can't link. When you are in Excel or you are in Miro, you cannot link these different things. You can just create a picture, a pretty picture even, which is always helpful, to show people the potential of it, right? The potential of having live, metrics showing to see how we are meeting our outcomes or not, but you can't really do it in real life. With this, you can. And so I actually personally think that the beginning moment of pure brainstorming somewhere that allows that openness is actually always very, very useful. But there is a key pivotal moment in which you have to start structuring things in a way that you can see how these things connect, right?
Nice. I love that. And now outcomes and metrics. You have a few examples there.
So the way I've done it is that, so as I said, for me, it's important to have a few outcomes, but across different realms, right? You have what are the things that we're collectively trying to achieve as for the customers? What are the things that we're collectively trying to achieve for the business, which is fundamentally linked to the strategy. So when I start this piece of work, all of the holes in the strategy of an organization comes to play, right? You immediately see where there are things that are just not, either working or not clear or people are not aligned on. And And so this is an example of customer outcome. So let's imagine that this organization, which is actually a real thing, wants to provide a frictionless experience to customer. What does it mean, frictionless experience? It could be mean a million things. It could be that you are, in the purchased product. It's super easy to actually buy this product. Your system remembers all of my data and all of that. But it could also be that when I receive the product, I use it for the first time. It's very intuitive, and I don't have to go on YouTube to, search on how to use this thing, right? So frictionless experience can be relevant in a lot of different stages of the life cycle for a number of different services and for a number of different journeys. And then you can choose, what is your definition? So that really pushes the group to really define what frictionless experience means. And then choose a metric, 2 metrics that can help us monitor that. So in this case, I chose customer effort score, for example, right? And you can see over a period of time in what way we are actually performing against this. But you can do the same with operational metrics. So you can say, this is an example of operational metric, which is meet delivery promise. So for some organizations, it's really important to actually be able to deliver within the promise that they had. Let's say it's below 24 hours, right? And a metric at this point could be, delivery time, right? And some of these metrics will be quantitative. Some others might be qualitative for a while until you figure out in what way you can actually make it a quantitative thing, right? But in general, my experience is that organizations measure so many things that by working with a few smart data analytics folks, you can come up with something that is pretty correct and pretty relevant rather quickly. The difficulty is never to find the right metric. The difficulty is to really align on what are the outcomes that you want to monitor,
I love that. You make it really, really simple. And I think people generally appreciate that. So there's people actually asking, like, can you share this one with people? Like, are you able to share a link for everyone? Are you willing to share this? Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, good. So are you open to take some questions from people who have been tuning in for the last, let's say, 10 minutes or so?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Georgia, is it possible to get your framework for a SaaS B2B company?
Like, I don't have all of the templates ready. We can build it together. Yes, we can.
I'm not sure if she's asking about, can I get the link for my situation? I'm just like more, I think, is it possible to use the framework in general for a B2B SaaS?
Yeah, for sure. I think so, but absolutely. I actually worked for a SaaS organization that was a B2B2C, B2B to B2C. And we've done the work, the thing, and it resulted to be quite eye-opening for them. We used an approach to actually create a couple of anchors. So we didn't just have, obviously, a customer life cycle, but we had a business life cycle as well that was connected to the customer one. So it was a bit more complex, but absolutely feasible. So yeah, I mean, you can really virtually do it for anything. It's just a question of, that's the guideline that you will have to adapt it within your specific context, right? There is not right and wrong with this thing, as long as it works for the people around and everyone is aligned around it,
Right. I like that. So maybe a nice segue to Ron's question. Have you seen teams managing their journeys in lieu of dedicating journey management teams or organization? Any best practices around this?
Okay. I personally, now this is, I'm sure that not a lot of people will agree with me, but I'm against journey managers as a concept. And the reason why is because, as you see in my structure, a journey is quite deep into the overarching structure that holds it. So what, in my experience, is way more effective is to have service managers, people that are service owners that sit above and they oversee in what way different products, feed into that, and different journeys feed into that, in a way that you might have someone that has an understanding of multiple journeys underneath one specific service, rather than having this specific knowledge about click and collect. Having a team that takes care of click and collect, I find incredibly dangerous, because it creates another silo. And unfortunately, in the ideal world, you say, yeah, but you can have a team that is dedicated to that, but they can collaborate with others. But the reality is really not that, because organizations are not set up like this. And the kind of KPIs that they will give you, the kind of rewards that they will provide will just go completely against all of that. And then at the end of the day, we're all humans and we will just go after our bonus at the end of the year, you know? So I am a big fan of service owners and service structures rather than journeys, but that's my view.
Nice. Yeah. Well, you're a big fan of journeys, but not journey managers, right? Yeah. So I'm scrolling up a little bit in the QA. I also don't want to take like recency only questions. Like I'm going all the way up. I'm sorry for everyone. Like there's too many questions to handle this session, but maybe we can do a nice follow up on writing. But keen to learn. Sharon asked if you've worked within our government clients at all. Like I think the other question was B2B SaaS. You showed the manufacturing or retail example. Like what about government?
We worked for the Parliament of the UK. So we did that at a parliamentary level. So yes.
Very good. Yeah, we also have a few government customers who are like making waves, putting the citizen in the heart of it all, as they call it, or the business stakeholders for people who are managing business in that like country or so there's a big emphasis on human centricity across the board.
Yeah.
So another one on maturity. Maybe this is also like very related to like when to start. You don't want to start this work when people are like getting grasp of like, hey, journey mapping, design thinking, what are those things? But once there is maturity, once there is momentum, and there is higher up in the organization, these pockets of problems that you can tap into, how do you evaluate that? Like, what is your way of assessing maturity? Like if they're ready to take the next step?
Oh, here you're opening a chapter. I could talk about this.
We have to keep it short, by the way. There's a question from Betsy.
Okay, so just briefly
more.
want to say that people tend to think the maturity is a ladder, you know, that you are maturity 0 and then you become maturity 1 and then you become maturity 2. And that's absolutely not. I mean, it's just oversimplification of reality. What maturity is a loop. As an organization, you loop through a whole numbers of maturity stages. And within an organization, you will be present in different loops at the same time. So try and understand, I mean, and I wrote a whole white paper on this customer journeys, journey, not a destination. We can add it to the thing. But I actually showed the 3 or 4, I think 4, most common maturity levels in an organization, in what ways you can actually loop in and how to recognize in what loop are you in. Because if you think about it, that we have done 0, now we are 1, you are screwed, because it's never true. You will be 1 in one pockets of the organization and 0 in others and 5 probably in another area. Right.
I see the same. I think that is the right way to think about it. People mature. It's not your organization mature, but if there's enough mature people in a certain thinking or line.
The organization can mature when you manage to change the structure of it. Like you change the policy through which something happens, right? But that's so rare. So you're right. In general, it's through the people that you see maturity.
One of the quick hacks, by the way, for people who are like looking at like how to make a big leap. There are some organizations that like there can't be an epic on a roadmap that doesn't link to a journey. So the whole change org must go through journeys, must go through, and if you work with Marzia in the A.V.O.C framework, like those are good ways to overcome that. All right, I'm gonna pick one more question, and then we're gonna come full circle on your book to end with.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, we will. So independently from, this is a Giovanni asking, I don't know where this is going, but let's try. Independently from hierarchy bottom up versus top down, are there different internal journey users depending on if you want to understand the customer journey or customer journeys?
It's a very good question. Yes, absolutely. And I think especially when you get out of the specific journey and look at this framework, the framework has a number of different internal customers, if you like, for radically different reasons. And it's really important to understand why people should look at this and almost provide a set of guidelines for them to do it, you know, because if you talk to senior leadership, there is no point that you get them into the details of a journey or a product, because it's not at the level that they are interested in or understand. What you want to show them is the highest abstraction of it, like what is the life cycle, what are the high level number from the outcomes, in what way we are achieving that, and how things connect. But if you're working with the product team, Then you want to get into the very granular, inside the journey, inside the actual touch point thing, right? Because you're looking how things holds up together, how they are built. So it's really important to understand, like fundamental, at the very beginning of the journey, this is like a really stakeholder engagement. Like what are my groups of stakeholders, these 5, what are their needs, these 3, what language do they use, at what level should we show this, right? And in a way that the team that manages this work should know it by heart. Like, what are the words that I'm going to be using with these people?
So this is fantastic, Marzia. I love, like, we can go on for an hour. Also, like, seeing the questions that we get. Would you be up for recording a little bit of a bonus after this so we can answer every other question like one by one and share it back with people? That would be fun. You're up for that? Okay, good. So before we leave today, and I'm sure some people are already getting their kids, if you're in Europe, going to dinner, having something like a break, you are also creating a graphic novel. So
you want to see it?
I would
see one page? I just printed one page. It looks like this.
Oh, wow. You're designing, creating everything yourself?
Graphic novel. Yes, it tells the stories of 9 design leaders who have changed their organization by design. And the first part is titled Making Sense of the Status Quo, and really talks about this kind of work. So in what way do you create momentum? In what way do you do stakeholder engagement? In what way do you actually build a structure that works? And it tells 3 completely different stories. One actually from a SaaS organization. Another is from one of the largest banks in the world. And the third is one of the largest healthcare providers. And you will see in these 3 very different setups how the challenges and approaches are very similar.
That is so cool. So this will be the first graphic novel that talks about journey management?
Yes, that's it. It's going to be published by A.V.O.C in November 2024.
November 2024.
Yeah,
All right.
So it's perfect Christmas present.
That
I'm
sounds
expecting
good.
people to just buy this as a Christmas present.
Okay. We have a pre-order link we can share with everyone already? All right. Okay, it's coming. Marzia, this was fantastic. I want to thank you for your time. This was really, really insightful. Love the pace, love all the perspectives you brought. Happy to do it again. We're going to do a bonus. That's a given for everyone who didn't get their question answered. So thank you for being open to that. And with that, thank you for joining, everyone, and see you soon for another episode of Journey Management.
Thank you.
Bye.